Well, it's time to learn how to farm. Hello again there, friends and fans. Raptor here, and welcome back to Manor Lords, yet another tutorial on this amazing city builder survival combat game, and this time now learning all about crop rotation, fertility, and much more. It's a little bit more interesting than you'd think, and honestly, in a survival city builder like this, it's really one of the first ones that I've seen do this, aside from Austria, which you may have seen before on the channel, and Farthest Frontier. Manor Lords 2 has crop rotation, and of course, animals, and much more. Livestock and keeping those pastures nice and fertile is all important in this game, as well as the burgage plots and other things to do with farming. So join me now and welcome aboard. Good to see you all here again. This game releasing on April 26, 2024, the hottest wishlisted game on Steam, over 3 million now in the wish list. So let's go ahead and get started. But before we do, make sure you smash that like button to let YouTube know you want to see more Manor Lords, and also subscribe. All right, let's go ahead and get started. All right. So here we are on our first stop to learning all about farming. These are the burgage plots, and these are the main draw and the main attraction, in my opinion, for Manor Lords. We can build all these different housing lots that are of different sizes and shapes, and they all can serve a different purpose later on in the game. For example, all these plots that we're building down here are eventually going to be Tier 2 homes and eventually Tier 3 homes that will specialize in things like blacksmithing and cobblers and making weapons and other things. They're all near the church. They're going to be big buildings, and they'll look real nice there. But even nicer, farther away from there, is doing a little bit of farming in these Tier 1 burgage plots. Now, these plots here have been set up to be a little larger than the typical plot because they're growing a lot of vegetables. Inside we can see there's probably like beets and carrots and cabbage and many other things, turnips and whatnot, that will be hardy vegetables for the winter for our people. And in Manor Lords, this is the only type of plot that, well, size matters, really. The volume or the yield in which you can grow and harvest here is really important, because with just these two farm fields alone, we should be able to feed up to maybe 25 or 50 people alone, as well as maybe doing some imports and other food diversity. But this is a great way to start farming from day one. If you plop down these little plots here, you'll be able to see that, let's pretend this one here was a big O one, or actually this one here. We've already got goats here on this one, and we've specialized into that, but we're going to try to find one that doesn't have any specialization so far. Here we go. A burgage plot Tier 1. So as you can see, we've turned another one over here into a little vegetable farm, and this is a real key, is to try to make it maybe a little larger than usual, but it doesn't have to be that big. This is kind of still me experimenting, and honestly, this can feed, again, maybe 50 to 100 people depending on how you set things up. But here would be your first stop. So you've built your Tier 1 burgage plots. You'll need 15 gold at the moment in order to, or silver, in order to convert these. You should start with a little bit of gold, and one of the first things you should do in Manor Lords is buy an oxen from the hitching post, a second one, and then start doing some vegetable gardens. Now right there under the description it says yields depend on the plot size. That's the only one that I've seen so far that depends on. Not even the apple orchards say that, but they do say something about it taking 3 years in order for the fields to, or the orchards, the trees to mature up to full capacity, full yield. So right at the start of the game, we can then grow vegetables for vegetables. We can grow chicken coops for eggs, and then we can also grow and raise goats in the goat shed. Now we won't be able to get meat from them. That's going to be a special little specialization before or later on. Right now, as we're getting started, before all this, you won't be able to have any of these development points. So just keep in mind that that's probably going to be your first stop, is the vegetable garden, chicken coop, and goat shed, with in high urgency to try to do that vegetable garden. Another thing that's important too is to build that little granary somewhere nearby your vegetable gardens too, so they don't have to walk too far in order to get to these different little plots. Now right now ours are, I think, are right up here right now, and so it's not too far. There's a tannery, a saw pit, a logging camp, storehouse, and then there's a granary around here somewhere, maybe even closer to the marketplace. But yeah, keep those buildings around, should be pretty good, and all should be well. Oh, I see we built them up here. A halfway point between this area and probably likely where we're going to farm up here. Now, as we're starting our city, another great important thing to do, maybe even before you build those burgage plots, is to take a look at fertility in the game. You can actually take a look at emmer fertility, which is old term wheat, word for wheat. Then we also have flax, which is going to be used for linen, which is not a food, it's more of a product to make clothing. We also have barley fertility, and we also have rye fertility. Now in this game, rye is something we also have to unlock via those aforementioned development points. They're very important. So that's something we can unlock later on, as well as underground water not really being important here. That's something for more putting out fires. So keep those in mind when you plan out your town. You might not want to build somewhere where it's fertile. Here, there's not a lot of areas of fertility except for around here, around these trees. So our plan is to cut down all these trees and then basically start farming here. Let's go take a look at a farm that's actually functioning, though, right now. We got ourselves a beautiful little city over here, the city of Medvedi Mesto. Oh yeah, if you know what that means, give a shout out down below in the comments section. But here we got ourselves a lot of little homes, a church, kind of the same deal as before, a little bit more of a kind of a sloping layout, and same deal. We've got ourselves the burgage plots down here with a lot of different crops growing. We've also got ourselves apple orchards down here too, so we've unlocked those via a specialty point, and those trees are growing, and those people are bringing those wonderful fruits and vegetables in. Now, unfortunately, currently in Manor Lords, the only way to get ale is by growing barley and then having that turned into malt, and then basically making that at a brewery, or importing it, and then you can ship it here to a tavern. But there's no way currently to be able to do like cider via apples, or mead via honey, or a mix of wine or anything like that. So it's just the ale, and that's going to be an important thing too for town growth. But we'll get that going in just a moment. And that moment is now. Check it out. We've got ourselves 2 big old farmhouses built. You only need to start with 1, and then we've got ourselves farm fields here to where we've got at least 3 on one side and 3 on the other for crop rotation, and we'll go over that now as well. So if we quickly click on any of these farm fields, we can see that we're growing wheat here. We have 1 year of fallow in between, and we can also even turn these fields into pastures for essentially, well, the animals will go in there and eat and do what they do best. They'll crap on the ground, essentially, and then that'll take care of that. We can fence that up by making it into a pasture that they can use. So it'll take a little development point and, of course, a few planks in order to make that, so that will help to increase the fertility, too. Now, there's also a way to further upgrade the farms, and we can also unlock that via development points, too, is the add a plowing station. We can actually have the oxen start working the farm fields, and they'll not only plow the fields, but they'll also be used as kind of like a forklift or whatnot to go out to the field. The people will put a lot of grain on them. They'll bring it back to the barn, and then our people will take wheat, and then they have to thresh it into grain. We can't just take wheat and then magically turn it into flour. They have to basically beat the devil out of it, like our good old friend Rob Boss once said on BBS. Remember that? Oh, yeah. Oh, there's going to be a lot of comments about that. But anyway, yeah, grain is brought over here to the windmill, surprise, surprise, and then turned into flour, to which then is stored at the granary nearby, to where it can then be turned into bread later on. So the storehouse here is storing all sorts of different goods, but the granary right next to it, that's where the flour is stored. And so that's going to be an important point of area for food to come in and out for bread. And then, of course, bread will come back here, too. So we got essentially wheat coming in, grain being made, going to the mill, going back to the granary, then over here to the communal oven, to where there are upgrades for our artisans to be able to cook bread too. Right now, nothing inside the communal oven. They've basically just harvested everything, and now things are being turned into flour. So it'll take a little bit of time. Ah, there we go. First bread coming out. So bread will be made all winter and then into the spring. So it's going to be a great way to keep everybody well fed. If we take a look at the granaries here too, we can see that pretty much they're storing only flour. So everything is essentially revolving around growing wheat into, our fields into wheat, and then providing that lovely, lovely grain. Now, we can also grow a few other things in the game. We have barley, which can be processed into roasted malt, and we can make a malt maker and then turn that into ale. There's also flax, which is then turned into linen, and then that linen itself could be turned into other products too. So a lot of things that we can get from farming. But I'm sure the biggest curiosity here is, how do we rotate all these fields, and how does that basically pasture building, the fencing up and turning it into an area for animals to graze, how does that benefit us? Well, we could basically take any sort of field and rotate the crops through 3 years. We can make a 1 year off section where nothing will be grown, and then the fertility will come back naturally. It says there that the field will regenerate all types of fertility, but the fields will have no yield. And so, of course, we're down to like basically 1% fertility here, and now the field is going to replenish all that. Now, we can turn that off over the next couple of years, and we can keep modifying each of the fields. But if we take a look here at fertility for Emmer, you can kind of see that it's a little spotty. So we can turn these farm fields off if we want to and spend a year importing stuff or using other farm fields. But you can see that's why we made our fields kind of this shape, with the possibility of adding more fields and perhaps doing smaller fields like this. Now, it's very wise in order to make small fields in this game, because this means that you can rotate the crops. So one year this can grow wheat, then this one can grow wheat the year after, and then this one. And then they could take 2 years, for example, doing fallow. It'll mean a little less wheat, but it will mean a lot higher yield, and so that could be a good thing too. Times these 2 fields will essentially have, hopefully, 2 fields growing wheat all the time, and then the other one's kind of relaxing until we come over with other types of options. Now, when you start to get development points, when you've started to grow your city, we have ourselves up at the top here, farming. We have then on the right side commerce. At the bottom we have forging, like blacksmithing and whatnot. And then on the left side we have foraging. So there's a few options we could take, like beekeeping, giving us an apiary which will produce honey, to which then we can make advanced beekeeping options into wax to then make candles. We also have forest management, which will double the capacity of all berry deposits, and only for that region. We also have trapping too, so even though it's not necessarily farming itself, it is a good food source and really the only way to get meat, unless we spend points in the farming tab, which we'll discuss in just a moment. That'll give a passive income of meat for our hunters, but also there's advanced skinning, which doubles the amount of meat harvested by hunters and butchers, which I think involves the future involvement of cows and pigs and possibly chickens in the game, and of course goats too. So it says that it will allow for goat pens to produce meat, so that's going to be a good thing there, as well as pelt extraction, which will also increase the hide consumption from trapping, so we'll get a little bit of a bonus there. But we're here for this. We're here for the orchardy, the sheep breeding, the heavy plow. We have ourselves the bakeries, the bakaris, the fertilization, the irrigation, and the rye cultivation. So rye is essentially a special crop that's super resilient, and you can pretty much grow it anywhere. So going with that perk will essentially allow you to pretty much grow anything anywhere almost. There's also irrigation, which will lower the damage of droughts, which is something that in all my time of almost 150 hours, I haven't encountered once. So unless you're playing on a harder difficulty weather-wise, I don't think you'll ever encounter the irrigation problem, so don't worry about that. Fertilization, that's the fence-up one I mentioned before, where we can put a fence around a field and then allow our goats or chickens or whatever to go in there. We don't have cows at the moment, so I guess it'll be sheep in this case. And then, of course, the bakeries, which then will allow our people not to have to rely on a communal oven, but can do it from home in those artisan shops, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Heavy plow does allow them to add a plowing station to the farms, which does have to be built individually, so it'll take a little extra time. So you will have to unlock this, probably buy another oxen, then build the plowing station, and then assign the oxen to that station. So keep that in mind to make sure you do that. And then, sheep breeding. Yeah, so the sheep will graze on their own at pastures and then slowly multiply. This will be a great opportunity to gather wool and sell more wool back to whomever, or possibly sell the animals back for money to the trade dealer. And livestock trader and the trader post are 2 important things too. So yeah, it takes a few years to do this. I would recommend not even starting a farm until you've got about maybe 8 people free. The farm does employ about 8 people, and it is a good idea to start with 3 plots that are of 1 Morgan. If we take a look here, let's just say this the area over here was super fertile. Let's just say this was really, really green. If we were to build this like this, you see under where it says plot points 2 of 4 and Morgan at the bottom. That's essentially how much can be plowed by a person without needing oxen. So that would account for almost 1 person, however big this is. It's a weird calculation, but basically what I'm trying to say is that a group of people should be able to do multiple fields of 1 Morgan. And so if you want to do a 4x4, this is a good idea, and the oxen can definitely take care of that. So it gives you a lot more space in which you can really have a lot more capacity for that. You can take advantage of all that fertile farm field, so that's going to be important. There are pop-ups in this game as well, so whenever in Manor Lords that you're doing something new for farming, it will try to guide you that way too. So we covered the fields, we covered the farmhouse, we've covered also the windmill and the communal oven, but not the sheep farm or the pasture. So the sheep farm will kind of operate like the farm itself, but will essentially just hold all the sheep that we've recruited like that. We can build that, and then we can also build ourselves a pasture too, so we can attach that to the building if we want to, and we'll do something where we can hold up to like 35 sheep or something. We'll make that a nice square. Cool. All right. Yeah, that's perfect. Right. So now we'll be able to get these animals. We can build the sheep farm, and import those animals shortly. And we could also do it via the livestock trading post. Now, again, cows and pigs and other things are not in here just yet, but this could be a way perhaps eventually to get more chickens too. We'll maybe be able to have large chicken coops, so we'll be able to buy them here. So right now we can only buy like one animal at a time, but the livestock trading post will allow us to import more horses, more sheep, more oxen, mules, even more horses, and more horses, which is a really important thing for the trader. This will allow us to import a lot of them. Horses are very important, and then of course oxen too. They're all important. That's why I mentioned them several times. But this will allow us to basically buy them in bulk rather than one at a time every 30 days from the hitching post, which you can do, but this will be a great way to then recruit those sheep. So the sheep will then go and be taken care of over here at this little farm, and then they'll be led to this pasture here to where in the winter time they'll be fed whatever they eat, and then you can shear sheep all the way up until winter. And then, of course, they can't be sheared anymore for the winter. They need to be kept warm, and then all the clothing that you can make from that, all the wool, will definitely go well for the economy. So that's a great thing to keep in mind. So that's a really important move. Now, another thing that might help out the farming a little bit, too, is the commerce section over here on the right side. You can use trade logistics and or foreign suppliers. If you read through these, you can get some better deals. And honestly, even though I've got a really nice farm here for the making of barley and whatnot, you might be at a certain point wanting to import more ale. So through the trader, which we have a group of traders set up around here somewhere, like for example this one over here. Yeah. So this one we're importing some food too. We're doing what they call full trade, where we're selling any surplus over this number here, and then we're buying anything below that surplus. So right now we don't have any honey, we don't have any meat, berries, bread, or low numbers of these. So we're trying to import them. Right now we got a lot of apples. So we're just trying to get as many trade posts built. And right now I built up to like 4 or 5 of these things, or maybe even 6, and it's still not enough to keep up with imports and exports. Right now in this town, we've got almost 25,000 regional wealth, and I've got 75,000 in the treasury. So it's a ridiculous amount of cash from just trading alone. And yeah, so we want to definitely increase the numbers of supply that we have, because if we hover our mouse up over number of months before supplies run out, food and fuel are both important. People will all year round be eating, and they'll all year round be heating their homes and using that also for cooking. But in the winter time, that amount doubles. So we'll have to kind of consider that as an important thing that we'll have to kind of have a cutoff point. So we could establish all these different trade routes. That commerce perk that I told you about before will reduce the cost of these some of these imports, so that way they're not as expensive to import or export, or to buy the trade routes and stuff. So this is a great way to try to get some more food. Right now we've got about 2 months worth of food, so we definitely need to diversify, which we're doing now. We've started to build some other stuff for the farm and try to get more food in the city. If we hover over food too, by the way, over here on the right side, we can see that meat, vegetables, berries, bread, eggs, apples, and honey are all considered to be food. There's also a commodity here for salt and ale. Ale, again, is not necessarily a food, but can still be processed at the farm, and also can be imported and is directly related to happiness. And I have not seen anything related to salt just yet. We might be able to import that. Maybe people will buy it at the food trader, or maybe it's something that they can buy at a different stall, but they want it, and they might not buy it though in the current version of the game. So just keep that in mind. You might want to keep an eye out for that one. So yeah, lots of people eating, lots of cool things going on, and lots to discover in this one. And another thing to keep an eye on, in addition to all those trade logistics, is also to make sure that you've got some of your artisans upgraded. Now, not necessarily traders are important, but also tradesmen are important. People with a trade or a skill or whatnot that they can use to help the town out. Now, right now, we've got this one upgraded to Tier 3, and I think under General, we can see that they're not really doing anything else other than just providing housing. But there are some homes, like, for example, here, the Fletcher, which is making bow and arrow, and we can sell that, too. So that's a great shop for that. But we also have somewhere around here, I'm going to have to find it. There's a brewery around here somewhere, and that brewery is very important for making beer. That's going to be their only way to do that. Now, I may have not completed the trade right now. I can't remember the whole cycle for producing, the whole supply chain. So if we take a look here under industry, we have ourselves, actually I think it might be under food. Maybe it is industry. There it is. Yes, the malt house. That will actually take barley and produce malt from that. It just needs to be refueled by firewood or by charcoal. So this building will take all the barley that you've grown and will make malt out of it, basically roasted barley. And then you can start bringing it to some of these buildings and turn those into like a brewery. For example, here, the brewery extension produces ale from malt, converts all inhabitants to artisans, locking them from being assigned to other jobs. So right now, we have 25 free people in the town, which is great for construction and other random jobs. But once we do this, we will lock a group of 4 families out from being farmers and other things like that. So, yeah, we might not want to do that, but in this case, we're definitely going to, and boom. So now, one thing we could do is we could try to grow barley and import barley too to kind of make up for a insufficient amount. We could try to maybe shoot for like 200 barley. If we only get 20, we can try to buy 200, and that number will increase over time as we hopefully get more fertility on it, rotate those crops, and get a little bit better at it. But also those imports will make up for it, and then all that malt could be brought to the, well, we can bring all the barley first to the malt maker, and then try to basically bring that over to the little brewery, and then that gets transported, I think, back to the storehouse, and then back to the taverns too. So a real big supply chain on making barley. You need first the field, then the malt maker, then the brewery, and then the actual bar itself, or the tavern. So that's the first time I've seen that. So yeah, lots of cool stuff there. Now, another important thing to note, and one thing that I've continued to have happen in this game, is that, yeah, you see all those thumbs down? This might be fixed on release, but this is basically due to a lack of stalls in the game, and the only way to get more people to be working at these markets, you can see there's lots and lots of stalls around. This is where people are going to be selling firewood, they're going to be selling food and other things, and it's not necessarily about range. I thought perhaps it was that, and so I made a bunch of little plots around here for different types of markets. I mean, there's some everywhere. We've got some pretty much down every block, and they're not too small, and they're not too far from the other ones. So there's plenty of places to go shop. But the biggest problem here right now in the game is that the people who work at these marketplaces are assigned to the storehouses and the granaries that already exist. So if we got a granary down here, somewhere around here, I think there's one, I think here, yeah. So we've got 4 people fully assigned to this granary. And the only way to get more people is if we upgrade the large granary, it just increases its storage. We don't really care about storage. What we care about is getting throughput. We want everything that's brought in from all of the different suppliers like vegetable farms and bread makers and whatnot to be immediately sold off. So it's a good idea to try to, as best as you can, make more and more granaries. So if you start getting a thumbs down, it's just because we don't have enough traders in order to help them out. Like they're bogged down at the marketplace. Like nobody can go shopping because there's a line, even though it doesn't look like it. So just keep it expanding upon, especially the food. That's usually the one that goes bad. So make maybe like 2 or 3 granaries, and that might iron it out. There's also been some thought about deleting the stalls too, but I don't think there's any evidence to that. I tried it, and still the same problem happens. So, but it could also be something to be completely fixed on the day 1 release version on April 26th. So, again, don't worry about that too much. So all good there. All right, well, that pretty much concludes everything there is to know about the farming. There are some other industries that do require you to do a little bit with food, like the dyer's workshop that has to do with berries. They'll pick berries and then immediately turn that into dyes. That's pretty lucrative. You can also, of course, take those goat hides and turn them into leather from the tannery, and then of course that can be turned into clothing like the cobbler over at the artisan shack. So very important there too. And then of course the malt house, which we discussed before. Now the sheep, I wanted to import them and show a little bit more of them, but they're pretty simple, honestly. And again, if we wanted to get some sheep, we could just click on the building or the pasture itself once it's done, and then yeah, it should be ready to go. It takes a little bit of time to build, even when we've got a population of 20-something people free. So pretty amazing, actually. So yeah, those sheep, I think, will work like cows, and the pigs, I think, will also work like them too, where they have their own farm fields and then can be taken care of. Where did we put those guys? I don't even see them anymore. Around here somewhere. I lost track of them. Ah, yeah, over here. Nice. Okay, so yeah, materials will be brought over, and they'll be taken care of shortly. By the way, another word of advice. The forager does have an upgrade, which you can't see at the moment, but it is an herb, like gardener, an herbalist that will grow plants that can help heal people. So the forager is essentially worthless in the winter, but if you keep a couple people working there in the winter with the little attachment in order to, yeah, basically keep everybody, you know, doing their thing, you know, not dying to death, that is something that's a good upgrade. Now, one last thing, too, is that there is another way to farm in this game. There is a gathering building for a forester's hut. You can actually continuously regrow trees by building this building. It looks like a little shack, kind of like the forager's hut. And you can put this down and then mark an area for trees to grow. It's great for adding decoration. If there was an area you didn't want to build in and wish there were trees there, you could plant the trees there. Or, in the case of this area up here, we've already built some, and this whole forest is just constantly being regrown and cut down by the woodcutters there and all the other logging camps and stuff. So it's a renewable industry that's really, really powerful. So yeah, very important stuff. All right, if you have any questions, let me know down below in the comment section. A crash course to a topic that usually would be pretty boring, but actually is quite exciting because it involves so many people in the town, and I think these are some of our best and most skilled warriors, too. I think these people are really strong because they're working the land all the time. That doesn't have any merit in the game, but that's just my personal opinion. So let me know down below. Let me know all about your excitement for Manor Lords. And is this a day one buy for you? Is this a game that you've already, even though there's not pre-orders, you've already pre-ordered it in your mind, like you're going to grab this one? Have you taken the day off, or you take the weekend off? Are you going to get it on Game Pass or GOG, or will you use code Raptoria at checkout when you get it on the Epic Game Store? I don't know. You let me know down below on what you think about the game, things like combat, city building, the farming, and much more, and I would love to know and to hear from you. So thanks again, everybody, for watching. Thank you for being a part of all the Big O streams and videos, and I hope to see you all next time. That is a thumbnail, ladies and gentlemen. That is a big boom right there. Perfect. Locked in. I'll see you all next time. Again, don't forget to subscribe for the streams and much more. And if I have more keys for Manor Lords, I'll be doing some giveaways here on our Discord. So links down below in the description. And say hi. I'll try to give it to whomever may be the biggest commenter or active in the Discord or whatnot. So just say hi and let me know what you think of the game down below. I gotta go. Goodbye.